that the term rigorous research was something that was always said. And I said, please define. I asked Michael Oakes, what is rigorous research? And we have many long conversations about it. And it just didn't land inside of me because of the language that researchers use. It was just something, this intersectionality of shared leadership with community leaders and researchers, interdisciplinary. It wasn't lay language. It wasn't language that community understood. And it was a three-legged stool. It set the odds up for there to be tension automatically. When you have two researchers who have the same background, somewhat similar experiences and understanding about that, and a community person who may or may not have ever worked with a researcher or with researchers before, I felt that just kind of jaded the impact of community voice being heard and being understood. I think that there was a lack of good communication. And communication is the legs and heart of how to build relationships. I don't know that there was real talk about shared values, about what's important to me from a community perspective, what's important to you as a researcher, understanding that researchers rely on these grants to get a check, to be published, all of the things that are inherent to them and this particular project and others. Never talked about flexibility and being able to pivot. Community people do that all the time. And always knowing that there is more than one way to accomplish a task and more. So I've seen, I say all that to say that I've seen it evolve in numerous ways. And I've appreciated most from a curriculum perspective that was so research oriented and intense that now it is more diverse and much more inspiring. The curriculum is. I remember having Research 101 and other topics that community people were to cover, and it was a headache. They didn't want to do it. They were boldly talking about not wanting to do it. And the community partners weren't getting much out of that curriculum. And quite frankly, I don't know that the researchers were getting that much out of the curriculum.
I was just going to riff off of Bobby around like research rigor was initially like very like causal model kind of focus, like proof and evidence. And it really evolved to rigor as relevancy for people who can bring about change and like authenticity. And so I completely agree with Miss Bobby on that. And this, like, like the early years, we didn't pay attention. It was like so focused on interdisciplinary and research that leadership, like what defines leadership, was kind of ignored or invisible. And I really credit some of the work that you did with us in the early days, Miss Bobby, around relational leadership, that like to be a good leader, it's not you dictating what others do. It's like, shared power, leading with rather than dictating, So it's like this idea of power sharing and recognizing the power of others on your team. So I just thought it became more explicit in the later versions of the IRL program.
And also, I'd add to Kathleen, I'd just say that too, I think that researchers began to appreciate community partners in a different way and didn't see them as somebody that was going to pick up the bucket and do all the cleaning that they didn't want to do, but rather as a vital part of that three-legged stool, that if you didn't have everybody working together, it would topple over. And that changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's such a great reminder, Ms. Bobby, that it didn't just happen by osmosis. It took accountability. It took resistance and resilience of the community. We are the microcosm of the world, and that was well demonstrated in the way that we have evolved. That's how I see it. So I really appreciate the response.